Week 4, day 2. Now remember, yesterday we talked about you're going to set 3 goals. And then each day, give yourself a plus or a minus if you do them. At the end of the day, you sit down and you say, okay, I did all 3 of those today. Give yourself a plus. Great self-image. If you didn't do them, write a minus. But then write down, why didn't you do them, and what are you going to do differently today to get them done? Day 2. The quality this week is responsibility. It's a great lesson. Look at the lessons on page 31, developingcharacter.org, page 31, PDF file, you can look at it. It says, the student fails a class, his response: I had a bad teacher. Now, what does that infer? That means that the student is, if a student doesn't have a great teacher, they're going to fail the class. The only way they can pass a class is if the teacher is a good teacher. Is that true? No. You're responsible no matter who the teacher is. When my daughter came home when she was in about the 8th grade, and she had what was known in the school district as a really poor teacher in one class. And so she was telling us that she had so-and-so for this class, and I said, well, I'll go in tomorrow and see if I can get that changed. Because being an administrator in the school district, I had some ability probably to change her out of that class. And my wife said, no, you won't change her out of that class. They use the same book in that class that they do in the other classes. It's your job, Kimberly, to learn the subject. And it doesn't matter who the teacher is. Great lesson. Awesome. Years and years later, Kimberly was in college, and I asked her, I said, how's the teachers? And she said, it don't matter, Dad. It's my job to learn the subject matter, not to criticize the teachers. See, you're responsible. If you go to English, you're responsible for the content of that class. It is not yours to evaluate or criticize the teacher. It is your job. It is your responsibility to learn the subject matter that's in that class. Situation 2, the team loses a game on a tough call. The team feels the referee cheated them. So the booster club, especially the booster club, and the parents and all the players, they say, if the referee hadn't cheated us, we'd have won that game. So that would infer if you don't get every call your way, you're going to lose the game. I'll give you a personal example. I was at a game a year or so ago, and this team was going to score right before half. And they ran down, and they got up there real quick, and they were going to run the quarterback sneak, and they were about a foot away from the end zone. And they ran the quarterback sneak, and the kid fumbled the ball. While they were getting the ball back and everything was going on, time ran out in the half. They had a timeout, and the coach did call the timeout. And the referee said, no, didn't get it called in time. One of the coaches came out to me after halftime, and he said, boy, referee really cheated us at the end of that first half. And I said, Coach, if the boy would have not fumbled the ball on the quarterback sneak, the referee wouldn't have even been involved in it. The responsibility is yours. You should never fumble the ball on a quarterback sneak. We played for a championship one year in 1976. I never will forget it as long as I live. And we fumbled the ball on the quarterback sneak. And the other team recovered it. And it would have been the winning touchdown. And we got back to the school, and we wanted to cuss this kid. I mean, we actually would have drawn and quartered him that night and probably hung him. And one of the old coaches on the staff asked me, he said, Coach, I have a question. I said, okay. How many times did y'all practice the quarterback sneak this week? What? You don't need to practice the quarterback sneak. Well, I think we do, because we just fumbled it and lost the football game. Now, who was responsible for that kid fumbling the ball? I was. We had not practiced that play, the quarterback sneak, in a goal line situation all year. So when he didn't do it, it's easy to blame him, but it wasn't his fault. He hadn't practiced it. Who's responsible? I guarantee you the next 30 years of coaching, we practice the quarterback sneak on the goal line. I guarantee you that. Third situation. Person has one parent, is abused as a child, is born into abject poverty, and use all of these as his reason for not being successful. You remember when we started and I told you that these qualities were in the 300 greatest leaders in the world? The people that we still know, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Helen Keller, Jesus Christ. See, we all know who those people are. Well, let me tell you something. In those 300 people that we're talking about, most of them were born with one parent, were abused as children, or lived in abject poverty. But they didn't use that as an excuse. What happens in your past is in your past. That's no reason to affect your future. You are responsible for today and tomorrow. There's nothing you can do about yesterday. Nothing that you can do about who you were born to or what your parents are or the color of your skin or anything else. You are responsible for the future, period. And until you accept that, you're never going to be great. Winston Churchill said the first step to greatness is accepting responsibility. Last situation. A man murders and cannibalizes young men. He goes on trial. True story. His defense, he was abused as a child. Well, logically, that would mean that if you were abused as a child, it's okay to kill and cannibalize people. Well, that is so ludicrous. Isn't that amazing? There's a lot of people that are born in abject poverty, or they're abused as children, or they're born to one parent, or they're in foster homes or whatever, that have overcome it to become great. Remember the dog tag I talked to you about that you get if you get all 36 weeks, the nevertheless dog tag? Those are the people that deserve the nevertheless dog tag. Because nevertheless, he only had one parent. Nevertheless, he was born in abject poverty. Think about Lincoln. Now, he was born as poor as any person that's ever lived. Didn't seem to bother him, did it? We don't even think about those things. Question number one, what's wrong with all the above inferences? See, the problem is you're always blaming somebody else. Well, as long as it's somebody else's fault, there's nothing you're going to do. What are you going to do about the referees? Nothing. If they make a bad call, they're human. You got to move on. You got to win in spite of the referees. You can't, if it rains, are you going to blame the rain? No. You don't feel good one day. You still go to school. No matter how bad your teacher is, or no matter what the situation is, you're responsible for the content of that class. Get that right. If you cannot change the circumstances, it's time to change the person. What does that mean to you? If you can't change the circumstances, you got to change the person. That's you. You got to change you. You're where you are, who you are, and what you are because of what your choices you've made. If you want to change who you are, where you are, and what you are, change the choices that you're making every day. Accept responsibility for who you are, where you are, and what you are, and move forward. See you tomorrow.